Greetings, cinephiles. Are you looking for a movie analysis podcast that stands above the rest? Then look no further than Collateral Cinema, the only movie podcast that matters.
We analyze good movies, we analyze bad movies, and yes, we also analyze the in-betweens of the world of cinema.
So if you like what you hear, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
And yes, my friends, we are 420 friendly. So when you listen to us, smoke it if you've got it. And now, here's a new episode of Collateral Gaming. The show starts right now.
I'm Zachary Guillo.
I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Megan Gomez.
And this is Collateral Gaming. Welcome to Collateral Gaming, the only video game podcast that matters, where we focus on good games, bad games, and everything else in between in the world of gaming. Ash, Megan, how the fuck are we doing tonight, guys?
Fucking great,
we're
man.
hanging in there.
Oh.
Dude, I'm so fucking pumped to talk about this with you guys tonight. It's been such a long time coming that I knew Ash and I were going to have this discussion, but to have Megan on here to talk about it as well, to have another opinion on this game, it just makes my heart so happy. Fun fact, the game that we're going to be talking about tonight is the very first video game I ever laid my hands on as a kid. And I'm super fucking stoked to talk about it because it means a lot to me. But we have a lot of news and stuff too. The Game Awards happened. Did you guys tune into those?
We did. We were yakking it up on the freaking. We were like, bro, what's going on right now?
We talked about it a little bit on the Spider-Man 2 episode, but yeah, that the Game Awards happened.
They definitely did. And to be honest, I'm happy that Baldur's Gate 3 won. Surprised that Spider-Man 2 didn't get a single award. And I'm actually very glad that Tears of the Kingdom didn't win. But what I am most happy about is Christopher Judge shitting on Modern Warfare 3. That is
that was great.
One of the funniest things that has ever happened in the history of the Game Awards. Man, really just roasted them with one single joke. And I loved that.
I love that.
But
yeah, I wasn't surprised with like how Baldur's Gate did, just because like Astarion is fucking viral on TikTok, and that man, I mean, the voice actor is just incredible, and like the whole series as a whole is great. So I was excited for them. The fact that they like stomped everybody at the Gaming Awards was insane, and then also the fact that Spider-Man didn't get anything when the previous time they released kind of made me feel a little bit of what's vindication, because that's what happened to me as a fan of fucking Horizon whenever Zelda got released. It was just bad timing, unfortunately, but
Horizon always has like, bad timing.
Now y'all know how I fucking feel. They do, and I fucking hate that shit.
I mean, bad timing, you could say that Alan Wake had like bad timing, or either bad or good timing, because Alan Wake came in hot at the Game Awards, and it's been out for like, what, 2 months?
Yeah, Alan Wake and Baldur's Gate stole like most of the awards, which I've not played either, so all that tells me is, man, these games are gotta be really fucking good. So I'm going to have to try them out. I might start with Alan Wake 1, but I heard Baldur's Gate 3 is something that you can kind of just jump into. It's not connected to anything else. So I have the demo downloaded.
I will never be jumping into that game because that kind of stuff does not interest me at all. But the only thing that interested me about it was Baldur. That's it. Like, does that have anything to do with like Baldur from God of War at all, or like
Norse mythology, to be specific?
Yeah. Does that have anything to do with that at all?
Does it?
I don't believe so.
I have no idea. I didn't care enough about it to look it up. But, you know, that's beside the point.
It's a D&D based game. It's like all D&D.
Okay.
Well, and in high fantasy stuff, there's a lot of Norse references, like a lot of names that are callbacks to Norse mythology. That's just a common trope, to be honest. Aragon, for instance, that series did it.
Oh, Aragon, dude. You just unlocked a core memory that I forgot even existed.
I know, I was like, wait.
Those books were so good. The movie was ass, though.
I only ever watched the movie, so that's the only thing I really had to base it on. But, I mean, in other news, God of War Ragnarok got some free DLC, and that shit Dude, the roguelike element, or is it roguelike or roguelite?
Roguelite, I would say. Roguelike.
Okay. Roguelite.
Roguelite. It means that it's not quite a roguelike, but it's similar to one. And for something like God of War, you wouldn't want to make it a straight up roguelike. That would be weird. Well, I mean, if you made it as like a spinoff, maybe, but as DLC for a game, roguelite makes a lot more sense. Last of Us also did a roguelite mode, but the difference between Naughty Dog and Santa Monica Studio, and I have a lot of love for Naughty Dog's games, but they like the what's going on, like, as far as the way that they're putting out games, like, okay, here's the difference. God of War Ragnarok released its DLC, Shadow dropped it as a free update. It's available. It was available, I think it was available a week after it was announced, and it's completely free. Santa Monica Studio, on the other hand, is adding their roguelite mode to a remaster of The Last of Us Part 2, which costs $40 or $50. So,
Ash, I think you got that flipped around there, buddy. Naughty Dog is doing that, not Santa Monica.
That's what I said. Naughty Dog is the one that's doing the shit. Did I say the wrong thing? Oh well, I'm high.
Yeah, you said Santa Monica.
I really did,
but I understood what you meant.
Okay,
yeah, I did too. No,
I meant Naughty Dog. So Santa Monica released their shit for free. Naughty Dog is forcing you to buy a $40 or $50 remaster of a game that came out a couple years ago.
Trash. And honestly, you're not going to catch me
playing. There's the remastered part 1 with like different parts of story that Neil wrote, and it's strange. I don't know, the way they did the whole thing is just weird to me, and it's like, which one do you say is the canonic real one? Like, I don't know. Me personally, I'm like,
yeah. Naughty Dog has made 5 games in the last 6 years, and they've all been The Last of Us Part 1. So I'm just kidding. But I mean, that being said, you guys kind of want to dive into the topic. We're talking about The Legend of Zelda: Oracle of Ages, a game released back in 2001 for the Game Boy Color. And was it the Game Boy Color? It's the Game Boy Color.
The Game Boy Color
that it came out for. And it wasn't even a Nintendo Zelda. It was the first Zelda developed by Capcom. And from our experience with, the Minish Cap, we know that Capcom can make a bomb-ass fucking Zelda game, and it makes me super happy.
Well, and we just talked about Dino Crisis this season in October, so it's definitely fitting. And Resident Evil, for that matter. We talked about both of those franchises. So a lot of faith in Capcom as a company. Obviously, they put out a lot of iconic series. They're franchise builders is really what they are. I was surprised at how Zelda-like, how Nintendo-like a Capcom-developed Zelda game is.
Oh yeah, dude! They did such an excellent job of mimicking the formula and making it just such a good experience to play. And to be honest, I love Oracle of Ages Seasons and the Minish Cap more than a lot of Zelda titles, simply because of just how well they play, how fluid their stories are, and how easy they are to just have a good time with.
100%. Megan, what's your experience with the Oracle games?
I played them a lot later in life. So I played them briefly, just to kind of be like, what else is there in this giant Zelda universe? It actually kind of started for me when I looked at the complete history, the Zelda book. I was like, fuck, I never played that. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll check it out. And then I was like, it's not just I'll just check this out kind of thing. Oh no, what have I done?
It's a full-fledged Zelda game. I mean, albeit a handheld one, but it's about the size and scope of Link's Awakening, and it actually borrows a lot of assets from Link's Awakening DX, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely, especially just the Link sprite.
Yeah, but what was cool about the Oracle games was, and I didn't play these throughout my life. I have tried several times to play through these games, specifically Oracle of Ages, because I heard it was the one that was more puzzle focused. And as of the recording this, I haven't played Seasons yet. I mean, I might have jumped in for a few minutes at some point. But like, yeah, I'm saving that my discussion of seasons for the next part. But with Oracle of Ages, I mean, I'd gotten as far as like Rolling Ridge before, but for some reason I just never finished the game. I think a big part of that was that for a while I was playing it on emulators, and then I would lose access to that emulator, or it stopped working, like GBA for iOS, which was the shit back in the day.
Dude, don't remind me of that shit. That shit hurts, man. I loved GBA for iOS. I thought that they did such a good job with that, and then Apple just fucking shit all over it.
Well, and you know, they're going to, because it is against their policy. I mean, it's like at some point, like GBA for iOS was exploiting a loophole in the certificate, and at some point that was going to get patched. But I mean, it's one of the arguments that people make that, one of the advantages, for instance, I guess, of an Android phone is that, is that you can sideload apps, and that's not something that you can do on Apple systems, because it's just not in line with their business model and what they're trying to make. And I mean, I can't hate them for it, because that's their business model, and I mean, their products are pretty fucking great. I have all Apple everything, and I'm happy with it. For emulation needs, I mean, I'm able to play these games on my computer, but thankfully the Oracle games are actually available on Nintendo Switch. And I mean, call me a corporate shill or whatever, but I generally look for a legal, way to play any of the games we do on the podcast. Emulation is kind of like a, if I don't have any kind of legal way to play this, then I'm just going to emulate it. Or, if it's just too difficult, like with the CDI.
Yeah, dude, we don't even talk about Zelda CDI.
But
we don't talk about Bruno.
But you're able to play both of the Oracle games on Nintendo Switch Online if you have the yearly membership. And to be honest, it's like a few bucks a year. So I pay for it, and I have access to just about, specifically because of the podcast. It's enormously helpful. Same thing with PlayStation Plus's highest tier, which includes retro games. So you can play it, but you can also easily emulate this. It would not be difficult. It's a Game Boy Color game. And I've done so before, and I've not noticed really any big differences between playing this game on an emulator or playing this game on Nintendo's emulator.
To be honest, I've emulated most of like the smaller Zelda games recently, instead of just like the last time I played the last time I played Oracle of Ages, it was on Nintendo Switch Online. But prior to that, ever since I had my Game Boy Color, I guess for about I'd say 15 years now, I've emulated everything as far as like smaller Zeldas. I can't remember the last time I legally played the Minish Cap. Come get me, FBI.
That one is on Nintendo Switch's GBA collection, I believe. Now, so.
Yes, I know, but the Nintendo Switch GBA collection continues to piss me off because they won't add Zero Mission, and I refuse to fucking play it until they add Zero Mission.
It is odd that they don't have it, because they have Fusion. I'm assuming that we're going to get Zero Mission at some point.
Dude, Nintendo's a cock tease, and you can't tell me any different. Why haven't we heard anything about Prime 4? We're not talking about that. Let's move on. I'm sorry.
I was about to say, I don't want to get upset right now, Zach. Let's move on.
I'm a little drunk.
As you should be.
Yeah, and I forgot to say that we are a 420 podcast, 420 friendly podcast. So whatever you have, smoke it if you got it. But I have wine, so I can't smoke that.
Well, I've got myself a little J right here. I just finished.
I mean, you could technically do like a wine-tipped cigar.
Okay, I actually have a cigar in my glove box in my car that my father-in-law gave me. Don't tempt me. I'll do that shit.
Or a bong or hookah with wine instead of water.
A cigar flavored bong rib. That would be the worst shit ever.
No, that would be terrible.
God. That would be the worst. Oh my god. Oh. But Oracle of Ages is a fantastic puzzle-based Zelda. And I'm really happy that we're finally getting a chance to talk about it, because these games don't get enough love, and they definitely don't get enough hype. Like, let's be real. They don't.
Well, as compared to some of the other titular games, I feel like that's kind of just unfortunate name of the game there. you know?
It shares that with the Minish Cap, the other Capcom developed a Zelda game. They both, unfortunately, came out at the end of their respective consoles era. And so, yeah, these games have been kind of overlooked. But the Oracle games, to me, felt like they were always, they're always mentioned when you're talking about the timeline, when you're talking about the series as the whole. The Oracle games they're just kind of there. They're not a mainline Zelda entry. Obviously this is a Game Boy Color game after the Nintendo 64 Majora's Mask. But right literally the year that the GBA was released. So, you don't hear about them a whole lot, but I haven't heard anything bad about them. And there are some Zelda games that I couldn't say share that. So
Tears of the Kingdom. Oh, sorry.
No.
That slipped.
Zach?
All right, Megan, we haven't actually talked about this, Megan. I don't like Tears of the Kingdom that much.
Why?
All right, because it's Breath of the Wild with extra steps. They took 6 years to basically make the same game, except they added the sky, which has a bunch of islands that are the exact fucking same, and they added the depths, which is the exact same fucking ecosystem and environment, and all you can really do down there is fight bosses you've already killed and light up. Oh God, what are they? The light beacons. The light roots. There you go.
Yeah. I feel like it's just a more complicated Breath of the Wild, and I didn't really get to talk about this because I just bought it. But
we're supposed to be talking about Oracle of Ages, and here I am sitting on an entirely different.
We can go off on a tangent. It's a podcast. No one's gonna scream at us. But yeah, no, I mean, I liked it. I just feel like it's a more complicated, convoluted Breath of the Wild.
The abilities are better, but speaking of abilities, Oracle of Ages has some of the coolest items to me in the Zelda franchise. A lot of people focus hard on how Ocarina of Time to them is their favorite Zelda game. But for me, since Oracle of Ages was my favorite game, or my first Zelda game, I had no fucking clue what the hook shot was. All I knew about was the switch hook. I had no idea about bows and arrows and stuff like that. All I knew was I had a seed shooter or a slingshot. Oracle of Ages is very unique in the fact that it has its own. Oracle of Ages and Seasons both do this because they're sister games, but they both have their own set of unique items. And I really appreciate that because it just makes the game so much more in-depth. And the dungeons in the game, the dungeons in Oracle of Ages directly correspond to whatever item you get, but they also make you use every item you've gotten so far. And I really appreciate that. And I took it for granted when I was a kid because I didn't quite understand what was happening. It took me 2 years to beat Oracle of Ages the first time I played it because I didn't understand how the Zelda series worked.
Man, it probably took me well over a decade to beat this game. So, to be fair.
Yeah, but when you started this playthrough, how long did it take you to actually get through it?
Oh, like a couple days, really. I mean, a few days, honestly, just to play through the entire game.
Whenever I play through a new game, this game is very special to me for multiple reasons. It's my first Zelda game, and it got me hooked on the series. But also, whenever I play through a Zelda game or a puzzle game or an action adventure game, something that basically is 100% story focused, like God of War Ragnarok, God of War, or Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, or The Last of Us, and these games that focus so heavily on story. And they take me days, maybe a week to beat. I think about Oracle of Ages and how Oracle of Ages took me 2 years to get through and understand because I didn't know what I was doing. And it paved the way for me to fully understand and dive into story games or video games as a whole. Because I didn't really have video games until one of the lunch ladies at my elementary school gave me a Game Boy Color and a Sega Dreamcast.
Oh,
the Sega Dreamcast came with... Yeah, dude. For Valentine's Day... I won't say her name. Just so I don't even know if she's still alive. Bless her heart. But for Valentine's Day, she loved our family, so she gave us a Sega Dreamcast with Sonic Adventure, Sonic Shuffle, and Rayman 2: The Great Escape. Oh, and Namco Museum, like the second version or something like that. Plus a Game Boy Color with Wario World and Oracle of Ages. And that was my introduction to video games. 100%. It's really cool, and honestly, I think my dad would like to share in this story as well, because he and I beat the Grinch together, which is a game we'll talk about next time on Collateral Gaming.
Yup.
He and I went all the way through the Grinch together. It took us a year and a half to beat it the first time, just because neither one of us were skilled at games at all. He's still not. I love him. It's Oracle of Ages. I have a very deep relationship with this game because playing Oracle of Ages, I knew it had a sister game, but I was a kid and I had no access to Oracle of Seasons. I had dreams about Oracle of Seasons because I wanted to play it so bad and I couldn't access it. I had the guidebook for Ages and Seasons. Half of the book was Ages, the other half was Seasons. And I used to read that guidebook every day. I would take it with me to school and just read the walkthroughs. And eventually, when I got Seasons, it was a breeze because I had memorized essentially what those guidebooks said.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent.
No,
but
it's good.
This game means a lot to me. It really does.
It's
the puzzles, the dungeons, the essences, the story, me cutting off Ash when he's trying to say something. I'm very sorry. Continue, brother.
I was just going to say, I mean, I can see this as being nostalgic for a lot of people. In fact, it is for me because I did play this during my childhood. I just never finished it. But I can imagine, you know, and then there's a special relationship that you have with your first Zelda game. For me, that was The Wind Waker, something I've mentioned on the podcast before. But, you know, I think that there is something very intimate about specifically your first Zelda game. And I can see Oracle of Ages just being like a perfect
Gateway.
Yeah, a perfect example of that. A perfect like first Zelda game in a lot of ways because it's much more compact. It's got the charm of the Zelda series. It just not quite, the length or the complexity that the console games have. And yet it is surprisingly complex. I got through the game very quickly, but I can still remember a lot of specific things about a lot of the dungeons in this game. For instance, the Mermaid Cave. That dungeon is fucking awesome because you get to play it. It's basically the spirit temple of this game. You get to play it in both the past and the present.
Absolutely. And the fact that doing one thing in a dungeon in one age unlocks the ability to do other things in the same dungeon in a different age. I think that is a very complex idea that Capcom nailed with such a compact and small title. It's very quick. You spend some time in the past, you go to the present to do stuff that you unlocked in the past, and then you go back to the past to fight the boss and gather the essence. So I think before we go any further, I need to just kind of go ahead and describe the main objective of this game. So Link is dropped into the world of Labrynna. I think the intro of the game is him riding into Hyrule Castle and stumbling upon the Triforce. And the Triforce, I believe, gives him a quest to kind of test his ability as a hero. And so it drops him in Labrynna, a land that's outside of Hyrule, and kind of gives him a quest, which is why they say, accept our quest, hero, so that they can test and see if he truly is the hero of legend, worthy of aiding Princess Zelda and saving a land. And so you're dropped into just this random forest where you go and you meet the Oracle of Ages and her friend / I guess helper or servant. His name's Ralph. He's a weird dude with a superiority complex and really awesome music.
That's
Ralph
my guy.
is a G, dude. Ralph is a fucking G.
He really is, man.
And the big bad of the game, her name is Varen, Sorceress of Shadows, pops up, steals Nehru's power, and in order to save her, this game's great value version of the Deku Tree, the Maku Tree, tells you that she has lost all of her memory because of Varen's powers, and you are supposed to collect the 8 essences of time in order to help her collect her memories back so that you can save Nehru, defeat Varen, and rescue the whole land of Labrynna from her evil power. It's such a quick and simple premise, but they execute it so fucking well.
Yeah, I mean, the story isn't as complicated as Zelda stories get. But even so, I felt like it has elements of that complexity still, and it's actually just really well done. Now, I'll be interested to compare that to Oracle Seasons, which is a little bit more action heavy, and see if how those storytelling compares between the both of the games. But I was genuinely impressed with it in Oracle of Ages. There's even a mid-game plot twist, or really a late-game plot twist that happens where,
You're talking about after Dungeon 6?
Yeah. I mean, not as you actually rescue Nehru pretty early. Well, I mean, it is after Dungeon 6, so it's most of the way through the game, but it's not at the very end of it. And so whenever you rescue Nehru, then it seems like you've actually fixed the past and everything is good. But Varen comes back with a vengeance, and she just takes over Queen Ambi instead. And,
the queen comes with impeccable timing.
Yeah, not a huge plot twist.
Favorite lines.
Yes, not a huge plot twist, mind you, but it does have one. It does have that like mid-game twist that Zelda games are known to have. So that's something that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom don't have, mind you. So,
well, you're right, but I think Tears of the Kingdom did a better job of like that mid-game impact with the whole castle sequence and fighting Phantom Ganon. Kind of realizing that wasn't Zelda, it was just Ganondorf.
You're right.
Playing games.
Yeah, it Tears of the Kingdom did have one. Yeah,
but I think that's a late game twist because that happens after.
Yeah. Well, so is this.
Yeah. So the Breath of the Wild, you basically create the story all on your own, and you just look at memories, and it's painful. It's very painful.
The big twist, which is that Link was dead for 100 years. I mean, that's revealed in the opening moments of the game, basically. So,
dude, what sucks is that the whole premise is just unloaded on you when the first time you activate the tower, and it's just the rest of the game feels like a chore. Okay, I'm done. I'm not going to get angry about it. The next Zelda game better slap, or I'm going to cry.
It will. I have faith in it. And for me, I'm just going to put it on record. I mean, Tears of the Kingdom still slaps. I will say I did hit a lull, but then I beat the story and it revitalized my interest in the series. Lately, I've just kind of been too busy, but Tears of the Kingdom is one of the games I do actually come back to every once in a while because I want to finish it. So that does say something.
Tears of the Kingdom would have been the best game I've ever played in my life if Breath of the Wild never existed.
Yeah, fair.
I'm going to go off on a limb and say that.
Yeah.
Because Tears of the Kingdom would have been one of the best games ever made if Breath of the Wild did not previously exist. Breath of the Wild is basically a beta for Tears of the Kingdom with its own personal story. And while I'm happy that they both exist, I would have been happier if Tears of the Kingdom was a solo Dolo McBolo Tholo.
Well, I'm glad that
if it was like a prequel or something.
Yeah.
I'm glad that your wife is experiencing it for the first time now.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that she can go straight into Tears of the Kingdom. So Tears of the Kingdom is basically going to be a massive DLC to her because that's what it is.
That's actually ideal because it's like, it's like when you think, I wanted to get more Breath of the Wild, there's a whole other game. I'm actually envious of all the gamers that get to play both of them. And I do recommend that. You could just play Tears, but if you play them both together, I think it's just like, it's gonna
Breath of the Wild is more exploration and discovery, while Tears of the Kingdom you've already discovered and explored. Now it's time to create your own world via sandbox gameplay. And what's awesome is that yes, we're talking about Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, but these games would not have been made possible without games like Oracle of Ages and Seasons and the other top-down games, other 3D games. Those
way to bring it back in. I love that segue.
Those games
in that lasso, sir.
Thank you. Those games paved the way for what the Legend of Zelda series is now. And I'm sure the Zelda team already has an idea and they're already working on the next title. But imagine how difficult it was for them to truly rack their brains for what's coming after Tears of the Kingdom. Because that Tears of the Kingdom, alongside, like, let's say Super Mario Odyssey or Super Mario Wonder, which I haven't played that yet, but I've heard it's good. Super Mario Odyssey, Tears of the Kingdom, these games are their masterpieces. And I'm willing to bet that Metroid Prime 4 is not going to be too far off of that. I'm willing to bet that Nintendo is giving their everything through Retro Studios for this game. You know, Retro Studios can make a good Metroid game. So these older titles paved the way for these masterpieces. And I feel like Nintendo has been laying out this pathway for themselves the whole time through these companies, creating just this one. Like, Nintendo has made it a point to say that Zelda is primarily a Zelda, or Zelda is a Zelda-focused title. Zelda is a puzzle-focused title.
Yeah.
But what's funny is that the biggest Zelda games are pieces of a massive puzzle that Nintendo has been trying to figure out for 37 years at this point.
100%. And you know, excelling at that, mind you. But what's awesome is that, you know, you mentioned Metroid Prime 4, and that's actually a good example to bring up, because the Metroid Prime series is another example of Nintendo outsourcing and allowing another developer to work with the Zelda formula. And we know that this works. Mm-hmm. I think that Nintendo did such a good job laying the framework for the series that people understand what Zelda is, and another developer that should include a team of fans of the series it is going to be able to replicate that. And and that applies to a lot of Nintendo franchises, but Zelda in particular, because you know how often I hear this game is like Zelda, this game is like Zelda, and they almost always aren't really that much like Zelda, but
people can dream.
You know what I mean, though? Everybody's always comparing it because we have an idea of what Zelda is.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, Oracle of Ages and Seasons did a really good job of laying out that direct path format. You're given an objective, you're given ways to do it and sources to use to make that happen, but it's really up to you to find your path. Because realistically, in Oracle of Ages, the Maku tree. Also, quick little segue, the Maku tree wants to fuck Link in this game.
Have you ever been fucked by a tree before?
Dude,
she's like, when I grow up, yeah, she's gonna give Link that wood. But when I grow up, I'm gonna marry you. There, I said it. That shit's too funny, bro.
I mean, she just decided for him. She's a little anime girl.
She's like, I was gonna say,
everybody is a simp for Link, and it's fine. Everything is fine.
Oh yeah, no, Link and his harem. I mean, Zelda might as well be an isekai.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, I used to have the biggest crush on Nehru. And honestly, what made that happen was the music at the beginning of the game when she's singing to all the animals around the tree stump. That music used to entrance me, and I would fall in love with Nehru every single time. Because that character, her character was like the first example I saw of an animated young woman, and like that, it made me realize I was like, I like women a lot.
I like
I like women.
Fuck, marry, kill the oracles. I would say
I'll kill them all.
I would say fuck Din, marry Nehru, kill Ferror.
Yeah, who the fuck Ferror, the Oracle of Secrets, bro? Like, what are you doing? She's always inside the Maku tree, like, yeah, they're always inside me. No, just okay,
well, and originally this game series was, in fact, supposedly this was Miyamoto's idea. Flagship, Capcom studio that was working on this game, had been working on their Zelda title on the Game Boy Color for at least a year, and then they eventually came to Miyamoto for help, and he gave them the idea of doing a Triforce of games, so having one game based on power, one on wisdom, and one on courage. And Oracle of Ages is and has always been the wisdom side of that. One of those trilogy of games was going to be a straight-up remake of The Legend of Zelda. Elements of that made its way into Oracle of Seasons, something I'm sure we'll talk about in part 2. But
absolutely. And honestly, I wish we had gotten Oracle of Secrets, because let's be real, that would have been the courage focused side of things, and that would have been Link's ability to solve puzzles. Everyone says that Oracle of Ages is the more puzzle focused game, and comparing the two, it definitely is. But Oracle of Secrets, that game would have been a puzzle wonderland. And I wish we would have gotten it. I don't know why we didn't.
Originally, they were Mystical Seed of Courage, Wisdom, and Power. And if I'm not mistaken, Courage would have been the one that was a straight-up remake of The Legend of Zelda, whereas Power would have still been the action-heavy one, and Wisdom, the puzzle-focused one. One thing about Oracle of Ages is that from that time of development to the end product, it didn't change. And so maybe that says something about it in comparison to Oracle of Seasons. We'll see. But what was interesting about that was that they were intending to have this linked game experience, which I'm sure we'll get into, but between 3 games. And it turned out that it was just way too fucking complicated. So they shortened it to 2. And so the Oracle of Secrets got shafted. Which
sucks, because let's be honest, that would have worked out so well if they had done it.
I mean, it really could have. Now, I really, 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 really would love to see a remake of these games, like Link's Awakening style. And I've said that before. It would be awesome. I'm not going to hold my breath. In fact, this is really just a fantasy. I know it would never happen. It would be awesome if they managed to bundle along an Oracle of Secrets with it, wouldn't it?
I wouldn't. Oh, yeah. I don't know if that would ever happen.
I don't think it ever would.
I feel like the remakes are very possible.
The remakes themselves are, because literally just give it the Link's Awakening treatment. Didn't add a whole lot extra to the game, and that's okay. I mean, it's just preserving the game in a better, in a modern format.
Yeah, and definitely use the power of the new Switch. Don't remake it on the current one, because the Link's Awakening remake, while it was beautifully done, it had a lot of issues with frame rate and stability, and a lot of the areas struggled to load. And while it was a very, very beautiful title and it was fun to play, I love the fact that they gave it that remake. It definitely deserved it. If they're going to go all out like that with the Oracle titles, do it on the new hardware.
Maybe that's what they're waiting for. I have a feeling that's what Metroid Prime 4 is waiting for too.
Dude, I swear to God, if they do a trailer for the new Nintendo console and Metroid Prime 4 is a launch title, Ash, I swear to fucking God, I will fly out there to Texas. Megan, you will come with me, and we are going to go to that launch event together.
Oh, okay.
Dude, oh my God, that would be so awesome.
Dude, for real.
If they remake Oracle of Ages, 2 things that I want to happen with the Oracle remakes is that they need to give it a full-on remastered soundtrack. Like, the music in these games is very, very well done. And what doesn't need to happen is they do a baseline 1-track remastered soundtrack system like they did with Link's Awakening. It was cool, but they had like 1 flute, 1 trumpet, like a drum, some instruments, and like the music was great, but it just wasn't fulfilling enough. I didn't like how empty most of the tracks felt. While they were better than the original music, I want if they remaster the Oracle games, they need to give them that full remastered and reorchestrated treatment. If they don't, then I mean, it's kind of a waste. But the graphics would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I mean, I think that the best thing to do would be to fully orchestrate it like they do with their console titles, mind you, the mainline games. So that would be the ideal way to go. But what a lot of remakes and remasters do nowadays is they include the original tracks alongside, with either the ability to switch in game or just a gallery to listen to it afterwards. And it would be perfect if they included the original chiptune tracks too, because let's be real, there's a certain charm to them, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm all for reorchestrated music, and 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna listen to the fully orchestrated version. But there is just a certain nostalgia. There's a certain charm sometimes to these chiptune soundtracks. I mean, the Ace Attorney series is another example of that. Like, I'll go back and I'll listen to like the original versions of the tracks sometimes because there's just a certain feel. And Oracle of Ages is another game that I feel like I could do that with. Like, I could just listen to the soundtrack of this game. Because it's so good, especially considering the hardware. I mean, I think
dude, absolutely. They really knocked it out of the park with the ability, with the hardware that they had, the power of the Game Boy Color.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you can tell that they benefited from it being near the end of the Game Boy Color's life cycle. So these games take full advantage of the hardware, which is nice. And an Oracle of Ages is 100%. Like, I noticed the game was smooth. It performed well. Now, obviously, I'm playing in a sanctioned emulator by Nintendo, but I think the game itself is kind of just preserved as it was. So I noticed that, yeah, the game just for something that came out in 2001 plays incredibly well, very smooth, no real issues. As far as just the gameplay goes.
Oh no, dude, that's one thing that was masterful about these older consoles. Before multiplayer and competitive nature came into video games, basically all of these games ran beautifully without problems. Like, earlier Nintendo consoles hit everything out of the park. I never saw issues with Zelda games, never saw issues with Metroid games, no problems in how they ran things.
And there were no day one patches. Am I crazy? People just released finished games.
No, none. Nothing like that.
Everybody was also like, I feel like everybody is also just so pushed to like release everything now, and the attention span is so much shorter than like how it used to be playing video games. Yes. We would wait years and be happy because we would play through the game 6, 7, 8 times and be like totally fine with it. Now it's like, well, all right, it's time for the next one. And I feel like that's why we're in like this cycle of like having a new COD game every year by 3 different developers and having all these issues, because it's like they want that attention span. They want us to spend our money and forget about spending it so we can get the next game. You know what I mean?
Honestly, fuck Call of Duty. I play that shit every year and I hate it.
My husband on a real level.
Yeah, that's like the experience of every COD player.
Yeah,
that's what's funny. Like, the last time that COD ever made a game like a Game of the Year award, it's been years, man.
Oh God, what, 5+?
Yeah. At least, right? But I will say, to be fair, games are a lot more massive than they used to be.
Yeah.
And the problem is that when the developer does take a lot of time on a game, we start to get impatient and we wonder. Yeah. But a big part of that also is that just like, show us something. Like, again, back to Metroid Prime 4. I understand that development is going to take a long time, but show us something that shows that you're making some kind of progress. That would be great. Give us sub news. Yeah. But Nintendo, like, their thing is that they love to just show things when they're pretty much ready to go. Oh, yeah. They love to shadow drop shit. They love to just drop shit like a month after it's announced, because they wait until the last second in order to talk about these things. I mean, in like the Oracle games, for instance, apparently had a pretty long development life cycle for a set of handheld games on the Game Boy Color, because essentially Capcom was just trying to figure out what to do. And to my understanding, Nintendo eventually did step in and help with development in order to just kind of keep them, I guess, focused. But Flagship at Capcom gets the development credit. I mean, I think they did the majority of the work. And it's clear to me that whoever developed this game understands Zelda games.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
At their core, and I had another point too, and I totally forgot about it.
Oh no.
Hey man, if it pops into your head, let me know. I'm out of things to talk about because I mean we could get into the nitty gritty of each and every each and every area, environment, and dungeon. But honestly, the game is 22 fucking years old. It's easy to emulate, dude. Go try it out. It's so good. It's such a cute little adventure, and it's just something that will stick with you because of how well it plays. And I'm
it's very much a cozy game now.
I'm very honored to have that be my first video game ever because it brought me into a world of exploration and experimentation that I just wouldn't want to let go of for anything. I love the fact that I'm a gamer, and it's because of Oracle of Ages that happened. I love the Legend of Zelda series, and it's because of Ages that happened.
I remembered what I was going to say, actually. It's actually, this is one of my only problems with the game. It's grindy. There's the whole RNG thing. You have to, and thankfully playing this game in 2023 with save states is going to be your savior here. Except for the fact that the save states also save the RNG state. So you have to know exactly where the RNG is determined. But this game is very grindy if you're going for 100% completion. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that you need to. I think we've discussed before that some Zelda games don't need to be completed. Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, for instance. I don't think that it's necessary for everybody that calls themselves a fan of the game to get every Korok seed. And I don't think it's necessary to enjoy Oracle of Ages and Seasons to get every ring in the game. But it's an additional challenge, and it's a reason to replay these games, which have an insane replayability, not only due to the fact that they're linked games, and you play one and then you play the other as a continuation of it. But there's an additional new game plus called The Hero Secret. And then you can play the games in the reverse order that way. And so it's at that point that she might actually want to start going after, I think, all of the rings in the game and everything. But I do hate that if you're going for that completion, how grindy it is, and how much it's determined by RNG mechanics.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I love the way that it plays so fluidly, how Oracle of Ages and Seasons play so fluidly into each other. And honestly, I'm pumped to talk about Seasons, but that's for next time.
It is for next time. And I'll be going into it pretty much blind because I have not played very much, if any, of Seasons at all. One of the only gaps in my Zelda history. I mean, mind you, there's very few Zelda games I haven't played and beat, but there are a few of them.
Yeah, dude, you need to hop into Seasons because that game's fun as hell.
I've not beat.
It's really good.
Zelda 2. I've not beat, and this one is the one that's going to surprise a lot of people, and I've mentioned it before, I think, on our Link Between Worlds episode, but I've not beat A Link to the Past, although I've played quite a bit of it. Let's see.
Yeah.
Up until now, up until yesterday, in fact, I had not beat Oracle of Ages or Seasons. I've now beat Ages, and I will be finishing Seasons very soon. The Minish Cap. I've played all the way up until basically the end of the game, when you're gonna go to the final dungeon, but it's just like, hey, let's make sure that we clean up everything and do all the side quests. That's where I stopped. Trying to think. I think every other Zelda game I've played and beat, but technically I haven't 100% completed Tears of the Kingdom yet, or Breath of the Wild for that matter. But
oh yeah, brother. Well, you should, because it's definitely a worthwhile experience to do them. And honestly, I wish I could go back and play all these games again for the first time, but I know that that's not how it works.
Right. You can't get that experience again. But if you're listening to this and you played Oracle of Ages or Seasons back in 2001, or at some other point, and you haven't picked it up since, it's a perfect time to get right into it. Like I said, this game is not difficult to emulate if you want to go that route, or you can emulate it on Nintendo hardware with the Switch Online subscription, which I actually think is worth it for its value. But I definitely wholeheartedly recommend these games.
It's like $12 for the whole year or something like that. It's cheap.
What,
It's also
Nintendo
a
Online?
great gift to give a stocking stuffer. Just saying, Christmas is coming up.
I thought it was like $20 a year or something.
Oh, I remember it being 12. I'm just like, oh, hey, that came out.
Well, there's the expansion pack too, which comes with which you would need to play Game Boy Color games. But
that's true.
But yeah, I 100% recommend playing through these games however you want to go about it, because they're really gems. It's a small, condensed Zelda experience that won't take up too much of your time. And Oracle of Ages is definitely just it actually represents to me like the epitome of Zelda. It's puzzle focused. I love the mechanic. I mean, we didn't even really get into the mechanic of traveling between the past and the present, but it was kind of like taking what A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time did with like a 2-world system, and really focusing on it, honing in on it. Because Ocarina of Time had the mechanic of being able to switch between the past and the present, or the child era and the adult era, but it wasn't as big of a focus as that is here, between traveling to the past of Labrina and the current age, and the whole. I mean, we talked about how even in like a dungeon you can make changes in the past that affect the present, and so I really love that they went all in, and this game pays as much focus to that as A Link to the Past did with the Light and Dark World system. Even down to the mechanics working fairly similarly. Like, you start out with being able to just teleport, using portals, and so only going where the game needs you to go when it needs you to via the Tune of Echoes. But then once you get to Symmetry City, then you can you then learn the Tune of Currents, which allows you to instantly warp to the present only wherever you're at, but leave a portal behind where you're at. And that works pretty much just like the mechanic did at the beginning of A Link to the Past when you first get into the Dark World. And then later on in the game, being able to just freely switch between the past and the present, which opens up a lot of the world with the Tune of Echoes, or the Tune of Ages.
Absolutely. I just like the whole Harp of Ages mechanic in the game. It just kind of brings a life to like musical instruments in top-down Zeldas that we hadn't seen so far. Basically you had the ocarina in A Link to the Past that just allowed you to warp somewhere, but now you've got a whole manipulation of time aspect with this harp, and it's incredible. It makes for really fun puzzles, it makes for quick traversal, and it makes for, you don't just have one set of warp points to use with the Gale Seeds, but you also have two. You have two sets of warp points. One's in the past and one's in the present. And to be honest, some of those are the same, but it's really cool to look at the uniqueness of the past and the present.
Yeah, which is separated by what, like 100 years? It's kind of ridiculous that it changes as much as it does, but
I think it's 100 years, yeah.
But I mean, that's pretty typical in Zelda canon anyway. I mean, the geography of Hyrule drastically changes in the span of a few hundred years every game. So, but yeah, I love how there are basically 2 worlds to explore in this game that are pretty analogous to the Dark and Light world, or Hyrule and Lowrule, right? So, I mean, they're similar, but different enough that it does feel like 2 different maps. Although one of my other only gripes about this game is that in a non-linked game, you cannot complete the present map. There's one square on the map that you can't get to unless you're in a linked game, and I'm so pissed. The completionist in me is just seething. But then again, there's a whole completion experience by completing both linked games. So you essentially have to play through these 2 games a total of 4 times, two each, in order to do everything.
And it's worth it because they're fun. If you've never experienced it, it's definitely worth it to run through it twice.
Yeah, and you basically get to experience both games as non-linked and as linked games. And the game even has a New Game Plus, so you could say it was ahead of its time with that.
Oh, absolutely. It was 100% ahead of its time.
But yeah, I guess, we'll go ahead and we'll get into our final thoughts here. Megan, what are your final thoughts on Oracle of Ages?
It's very much a I feel like it's a must play if you're like a beginning Zelda fan. Like y'all said, it's readily available on the Switch, and it's on the Nintendo Switch Online, so it's not like it's hard to come by. So I think it's a good game to play if you're wanting something for just like an afternoon play, or maybe even a palate cleanser in between other games. And I don't mean that in a light way. I just mean in the fact of how it's a puzzle based game as compared to Seasons. And it's a good tie into other Zelda series, especially if you want to be all canonical and all of that. It's a good overall play.
Hell yeah. And
oh yeah, dude.
Zach, what are your final thoughts on the game?
I think it's one of my favorite games of all time. I think it got me into not only an amazing series of video games that have changed my life for the better. I think it is a very fun, unique, wonderful experience full of childlike wonder and discovery. I think that it is a very unique, straightforward, and lovely experience. It's ahead of its time as far as older games are considered, and I definitely think it's a worthwhile play. I'm a little bit biased because I have a lot of just straight up nostalgia attached to this game. It's one of my favorite games ever. It's the first video game I ever played. I love it so much, and I definitely give it it's a 10 out of 10 for me. I love it. It's a great game. I've beaten it no less than 45 times, and that's not an exaggeration. I got to a point where I timed myself playing it, and I think the quickest time I ever beat it was 5.5 hours, just going straight through it.
Not bad, man. That's fucking awesome. Yeah, as for me, I think that Oracle of Ages is a snapshot of the Zelda experience. It really is. It's everything that you're looking for. It's even a good introductory game, mind you, because it's a little bit simpler, a little bit more compact, and it's accessible. And yet it still has that quality to it that you'd expect out of any Zelda game. So hats off to Capcom for being able to make a fucking Zelda game. Hats off to Nintendo for allowing it. Nintendo, do more of this. Let other studios take over and do some of these in-between games. I mean, I know that they are with the remakes and the remasters, I think, is kind of the equivalent of that now to handheld Zelda entries. That and spin-offs like Hyrule Warriors. And in those cases, with the remakes, I think Grezzo has done most of them, if not all of them. And obviously, Koei in charge of the Dynasty Warrior stuff, or Koei's the publisher. I think. But either way, I mean, Nintendo, I definitely encourage them to do that more. I'd say, let's get a remake of both of these games as a packaged experience. You won't have to deal with the password system that way. You won't have to worry about hooking your consoles together with a linked cable. You can just have, the game save data, remember which game you played first, and go from there. So they could definitely streamline the whole thing. But in addition to that, I think that Nintendo should allow Capcom or some other third-party developer to develop another Zelda game, like a new Zelda game. Not a remake or remaster of an existing one, not a spin-off, but like a full-on, full-fledged Zelda game, like Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. I mean, God knows we wait long enough between the first-party developed mainline Zelda entries. So what's wrong with doing another new Zelda experience, but through the lens of another developer? I mean, obviously, they're still allowing Retro to take over the Metroid side of things, so...
That's because Metroid has proven themselves as a worthy, creator, and I think Mercury Steam has kind of done that as well. Mm-hmm. And honestly,
Mercury Steam,
I think for future top-down Zelda, Mercury Steam. Did I mess that up? Sorry.
Yeah, no, you got it right. I'm just saying them as well, because they not only remade Metroid 2, but Metroid Dread, which I still consider to be the best 2D Metroid game, was developed by them, or co-developed. I'm not sure how much Nintendo was involved, but yeah. Yeah, no, they're worthy of mention too for that reason, as being a developer of an independent game in a Nintendo franchise. So, I don't think the flagship studio exists anymore, but if Capcom is interested in doing more Zelda stuff, I'd be here for it. Maybe just not do it at the end of a hardware's life cycle. That way that's not just like
Absolutely.
overlooked.
Yeah, give us something brand new at the beginning of
the Switch
like
2.
the next console. Absolutely, yeah, dude. But I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up for ages. The next time we get together, we're probably going to talk about seasons. I know Ash and I are going to get together this time tomorrow at the time of recording and talk about how the Grinch Stole Christmas. But
yes,
dude, we are on
the Jim Carrey version.
The video game
like,
based on the Jim Carrey
the video
version.
game for the
game.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
heard.
it's so good. It is so good. And I mean, honestly, you could check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to your podcasts. We are there. It's always a good time getting together. Megan, I feel like you and I haven't been on an episode together in forever. And honestly,
I know.
You need to come back for seasons.
I think it was Star Wars was the last time when we did Jedi Survivor.
Survivor. I'm actually about to play through that game again, to be honest.
I need to still finish that game. I sadly had to delete it to make room for God of War Ragnarok.
It's not great. It's okay. It's okay. It's just it's nowhere near as good as the first game.
Mind you, I just found out that any PS5 game that you've downloaded, that you've purchased digitally, you can stream if you delete it. So I apparently that's a thing. So that should include Jedi Survivor, because God of War Ragnarok launched on both the PS4 and the PS5. And so did Jedi Survivor. So if anything, I should be able to stream it and finish it sometime. I like it so far. I have no complaints. I think it improves on everything the first game did. But we already talked about that game. We have a whole episode about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Like I enjoyed it and I loved playing it all the way through, but it just didn't hit me like the first game didn't. It just didn't hit me like the first game.
Fair enough. I'll have to finish it.
Alan and I with the big sense of nostalgia and then excitement, and then we just played through the whole game. We were like, "This is pretty awesome."
Yeah, the beginning of the game is fire, but I mean, you know what? But I think that about sums it up. You guys have any other thoughts before we get out of here?
No. So, yep, stay tuned for part 2, Warcliffe Seasons, and our holiday special on the Grinch by Christmas. And then we should have the seasons episode out by the end of the month, most likely, maybe bleeding into January. It happens. Expect some kind of holiday edition of the bonus round as well by the end of the month, if we can. I think that we're doing Angry Video Game Nerd from here on for that. So we're going to, the plan right now currently is to do our top 5 favorite Angry Video Game Nerd season 2 episodes, because we did season 1 last year. So stick around for that. And then sometime probably on or after the new year, I'd love to do a year in review episode, just covering any of the games that came out this year that we didn't get a chance to do an episode on. It doesn't have to be all of us have to have played every game, but I'm going to go, if I can, check out Baldur's Gate 3, at least play the demo, and just kind of try everything out that came this year. There's a few games that I bought with the intention of doing an episode on, but didn't. So, Street Fighter 6. I just played Super Mario RPG and Persona 5 Tactica, intending to do an episode on them, but didn't. So, Naruto Storm Connections. There was a fuck ton of fantastic games that came out this year. The Dead Space remake, Hogwarts Legacy, if you're interested in that. So many games came out in 2023 that were a big deal. So,
well, I mean, we're definitely going to be getting back together tomorrow night to record the Grinch, and we'll come back next time for part 2 with Oracle of Seasons. But I guess for now we can kind of call it quits. So, with that being said, I'm Zachary Guillo,
and I'm Ashley Chancellor,
and I'm Megan Gomez.
This has been Collateral Gaming. You guys have a wonderful and very Merry Christmas, and we are out.
Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.